Welcome back to another episode of She's Evolving. I'm Elena, your host and resident endocrinologist, and I'm sitting here today with my dear friend and colleague, Julia. Today we are tackling a topic that I think every single woman listening has felt in her bones lately. We're talking about productivity, but not the kind of productivity you see on those hustle culture Instagram feeds. We're talking about productivity with lightness. Is it even possible to produce, to create, and to manage our lives without ending the day feeling completely depleted?
It's a question that feels more urgent than ever, isn't it? I'm Julia, clinical psychologist, and I see this every day in my practice. Women in their 40s and 50s who are trying to run at the same pace they did in their 20s, but their bodies and their souls are screaming for a different rhythm. If you've ever felt like your to-do list is a weight on your chest rather than a roadmap for your day, or if you've wondered why the strategies that used to work for you just don't anymore, then this conversation is for you. We want to invite you to settle in, maybe take a deep breath with us, and let's explore what it means to evolve into a new phase of doing.
Before we dive deep, I want to remind everyone to follow the podcast and share this episode. We know so many women are struggling in silence with burnout, and sometimes just hearing that you're not alone is the first step toward healing. Elena, let's start with us. I was thinking about this theme all morning. I remember a time, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when I measured my worth by the number of check marks on my planner. If I hadn't seen 10 patients, answered 50 emails, and cooked a gourmet meal, I felt like I'd failed. But lately, that drive feels different. It feels heavier. Did you have a moment where you realized the old way of producing was no longer sustainable for you? Oh, Julia, more than one. I remember a specific Tuesday about 2 years ago. I was in my clinic and I had back-to-back patients. I'm an endocrinologist, so I'm literally talking to women all day about their energy levels, their cortisol, their thyroids, and there I was, my heart racing, my hands slightly shaking from too much caffeine and not enough breakfast, trying to explain stress management to a patient. I looked at her and I realized I was a hypocrite. My body wasn't just tired, it felt brittle. I realized that my hormones, which I understand so well on paper, were being absolutely ravaged by my refusal to slow down. I was trying to outrun my own biology. Outrun your own biology, that is such a powerful way to put it. For me, it was the mental load. I call it the browser with 100 tabs open. You're trying to be the perfect psychologist, the perfect mother to teenagers who are going through their own storms, the daughter to aging parents, and somewhere in there you're supposed to find time for yourself. I found myself standing in the middle of the kitchen one evening, staring at a bag of groceries, and I couldn't remember what I was supposed to cook. My brain just blinked out. It was a total system overload. I realized that my productivity was actually just a form of dissociation. I wasn't living my life, I was just managing it. That's exactly it. And the thing is, as we cross that 40 or 45-year-old threshold, our bodies literally lose the buffer we used to have. When we were 25, we could pull an all-nighter or work a 12-hour shift and bounce back with a good night's sleep. But now, the physiological cost of that hustle is so much higher.
It really is. And I think there's a lot of shame attached to that, isn't there? Women come into my office feeling like they're losing their edge. They say, Julia, I used to be so sharp, I used to be a powerhouse. Now I'm forgetful, I'm tired, and I just want to sit in a garden and do nothing. They see it as a decline. But what if it's not a decline? What if it's an invitation to a different kind of power? I love that, an invitation. Let's look at the science of that decline for a second, because I think understanding the why helps remove that shame. As we move into perimenopause and menopause, our estrogen levels start to fluctuate and eventually drop. Estrogen isn't just about reproduction, it's a master regulator in the brain. It affects our cognition, our mood, and how we handle stress. When estrogen drops, our stress resilience drops with it. So it's not that we're getting weaker, it's that our internal chemistry is changing the way we process the world.
Exactly. And then there's cortisol, the stress hormone. When we're younger, our bodies can handle those cortisol spikes better. But in this new phase, high cortisol doesn't just make us productive, it leads to systemic inflammation, sleep disturbances, and that stubborn weight gain around the middle that drives everyone crazy.
If we try to use the same push, push, push mentality, we're essentially pouring gasoline on a hormonal fire. We're not just tired, we're physiologically stressed at a cellular level.
This explains so much of the brain fog my patients describe. From a psychological perspective, we also have to consider the mental load of this life stage. We are often the sandwich generation. We are caring for the generation above us and the generation below us. Our brains are constantly scanning for the needs of others. When you add hormonal shifts to that level of cognitive demand, it's a miracle we function at all. We need to talk about cognitive rest. It's not just about sleeping, it's about giving the brain permission to stop scanning for threats or tasks. And that's where the lightness comes in. Productivity in our 40s and 50s shouldn't be about volume, it should be about intention. I've had to teach myself and my patients that resting is a productive act. If you don't rest, your hormones won't regulate. If your hormones don't regulate, you won't have the focus to do the things you love. It's a cycle. Let's talk about some of the myths we've been fed. I think the biggest one is the Superwoman myth. You know, the idea that we can have it all, do it all, and look 25 while doing it. It's a lie that's sold to us, and it's a lie that makes us sick. Elena, do you hear women saying they feel lazy when they try to slow down? Every single day. Elena, I feel so lazy because I need a nap at 3 p.m. And I tell them, you're not lazy. Your body is performing a massive hormonal recalibration. It's like trying to update the software on your computer while you're also trying to run a heavy video editing program. The system is going to crash. We need to stop equating busyness with worth.
Another myth I see is that more hours equals more results. In my world, we call it the Law of Diminishing Returns. After a certain point, the extra hour you spend on that project at 10 p.m. is actually lower quality work, and it's going to cost you 3 hours of productivity the next morning because you didn't sleep well. We have to learn to trust the new rhythm. I often get asked, but Elena, how do I actually do it? I have a job, I have kids, I can't just go to a spa for a month. And my answer is always, start with the micro rhythms. It's not about changing your whole life overnight. It's about changing how you move through your hour. For example, the 20-minute rule. Work for 20 minutes, then look away from the screen, breathe, and reset your nervous system for 2 minutes. It signals to your adrenals that you are safe. I love that. From a psychological standpoint, I suggest energy mapping. Instead of a to-do list, try an energy list. What are the tasks that drain you, and what are the tasks that give you life? If you know your energy is highest at 10 a.m., do your hardest thinking then. If you hit a wall at 4 p.m., don't fight it. That's the time for low-stakes tasks, like folding laundry or clearing out your inbox, or better yet, a walk. And what about the no, Julia? Why is it so hard for us to say it? Oh, the no is a muscle we've let atrophy. We've been socialized to be the fixers. We think that saying no to a PTA meeting or a new project at work makes us difficult. But at this stage of life, no is a survival skill. Every no to something that doesn't serve you is a yes to your own health. It's about setting boundaries not just with others, but with our own expectations of ourselves.
I had a patient recently who told me she started quiet Sundays. No plans, no chores, no social media. She said she felt guilty for the first 3 weeks, but by the 4th week, her hot flashes had decreased and her sleep was better. Her body was finally out of fight or flight mode. That's the lightness we're talking about. It's the permission to exist without performing.
That is so beautiful. Exist without performing. Imagine if we all took that as our mantra for this phase of life. We spent our 20s and 30s performing, building careers, building families, proving our value. Now, in our 40s and 50s, we have the opportunity to just be. And ironically, when we allow ourselves to be, we often find a much deeper, more creative kind of productivity. We're not just churning out tasks, we're creating meaning. It's a shift from quantity to quality. I find that I'm actually more effective now as a doctor than I was 10 years ago, even though I see fewer patients. Because I'm more present, I'm not rushing to the next thing. My rhythm is slower, but my impact is deeper. We've had a few questions from our listeners about this. One woman asked, how do I explain this to my boss or my partner? They expect the old me. This is a tough one, isn't it? It requires a very honest conversation. It's about saying, I am entering a new phase of my life, and my capacity is changing.
To give you my best, I need to work differently. It's not about doing less, it's about doing things in a way that is sustainable. And for the partners, it's about education. Explain the biology. Tell them, my body is going through a massive transition, similar to puberty, and I need more recovery time. Most people who love you will understand once they realize it's not a choice, but a biological reality.
And let's not forget the importance of self-compassion. We are often our own harshest critics. If you have a day where you just can't get it together, don't beat yourself up. Your worth is not tied to your productivity. You are valuable because you are, not because of what you produce. Exactly. This new phase is a marathon, not a sprint. We are building the foundations for the next 30 or 40 years of our lives. We want those years to be vibrant and joyful, not spent in a state of chronic exhaustion. So, as we start to wrap up today's conversation, I want to ask everyone listening, what is one thing you can lighten today? Is it a task you can delegate? A no you can finally say? Or maybe just 5 minutes of sitting in silence with your own breath? Your body is changing, your life is changing, but this isn't the end of your productivity. It's the birth of a new, more sustainable rhythm. It's about honoring the woman you are becoming, not clinging to the woman you used to be. You are evolving, and that evolution requires a different kind of fuel. And remember, you are not alone in this. We are all navigating these waters together. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend. Let's start a movement of women who choose lightness over burnout. Let's redefine what it means to be a powerhouse in our 40s, 50s, and beyond. Thank you for being with us today on She's Evolving. I'm Elena. And I'm Julia. Keep evolving, keep breathing, and we'll talk to you in the next episode. You know, Elena, as we were discussing the physiological changes, it's impossible not to address how this translates into our daily to-do lists. I hear it so often in my office, women who feel like they are failing because they can't maintain the same 110% intensity they had in their 30s. They feel like they're running a race with weights tied to their ankles. Exactly, and that's where we enter our next segment. I want to dive into the myths and the most common questions we receive about this productivity trap. Because let's be honest, the world doesn't stop just because we're going through a hormonal shift. If anything, the demands often increase. We're often the sandwich generation, caring for growing children and aging parents simultaneously. That is such a heavy burden, Elena. And the first myth I want to tackle is one that is deeply ingrained in our culture. The idea that being productive means being busy every single second. Many women think that if they aren't crossing something off a list, they are falling behind. But at this stage of our lives, busy is often the enemy of productive. I couldn't agree more. From a medical standpoint, that constant on state keeps our cortisol, the stress hormone, peaked all day. When your cortisol is constantly high, especially during perimenopause or menopause, it signals your body to store fat, it disrupts your sleep, and it actually creates that brain fog we all dread. So the myth that more hours equals more results is actually biologically counterproductive for us now. It's a vicious cycle. We feel foggy, so we try to work harder and longer to compensate, which makes us more stressed, which increases the fog. One question I get a lot is, Julia, is it even possible to be successful without the hustle? And my answer is always yes, but you have to redefine success. Success in this phase is about precision, not volume. It's about doing the 3 things that actually matter rather than 20 things that just keep you spinning.
That leads me to a question a listener sent in recently. She asked, Elena, I used to be a morning person, but now I wake up exhausted, even if I slept 8 hours. Am I just getting lazy? And my heart went out to her. The myth here is that productivity has a fixed schedule. Our bodies are changing. Our circadian rhythms are shifting because of the drop in progesterone. You aren't lazy. Your internal clock is recalibrating. That is so liberating to hear. I think we need to give ourselves permission to work with our energy, not against it. If your brain doesn't wake up until 10 a.m. now, why are we forcing ourselves to do the hardest tasks at 7 a.m. just because that's what we did 10 years ago? Lightness comes from alignment. It's about looking at your day and saying, where is my peak energy? And putting the heavy lifting there, then allowing the rest of the day to be more fluid. And what about the myth of multitasking, Julia? We were raised to believe that being a superwoman who can cook, answer emails, and help with homework all at once was a badge of honor. Oh, that's a dangerous one. Science tells us the brain doesn't actually multitask, it task switches, and every switch has a switching cost. It drains your mental battery faster. For a woman over 40 or 50 whose cognitive resources are already being taxed by hormonal fluctuations, multitasking is like leaving 20 tabs open on an old computer. Eventually, the whole system crashes.
I love that analogy. It's exactly what happens. We see the crash in the form of burnout, irritability, or just total physical exhaustion by Thursday afternoon. Another common doubt I hear is about rest. Women ask me, how can I justify a nap or a walk when my inbox is full? They feel like rest is a reward they haven't earned yet.
We have to flip that script. Rest is not a reward, it's a prerequisite. It's the fuel. If you don't rest, you aren't saving time. It's just borrowing energy from tomorrow. And that's a loan with a very high interest rate. I tell my patients to schedule white space in their calendars. Not a break to go do laundry, but actual white space where nothing is planned. That's where the lightness starts to breathe. It's about radical self-compassion. I often tell my patients that their body is no longer a machine that they can just command to perform. It's more like a garden. You have to tend to it, you have to know when the soil needs water, and you have to respect the seasons. You can't force a plant to bloom in the middle of winter. That's a beautiful way to put it. And speaking of seasons, we also need to debunk the myth that consistency must look the same every day. In our 20s, maybe we could hit the gym at 6 a.m. every single day. Now, consistency might mean 3 days of intense movement and 4 days of gentle stretching or walking. Consistency is staying in the game, not playing at the same intensity every day.
Exactly. I think another big doubt women have is, will I ever get my edge back? They feel like they've lost their sharpness. I want to reassure everyone listening, you haven't lost your edge. You're gaining a new kind of wisdom. Your productivity is becoming more essentialist. You're losing the fluff and keeping the substance.
Yes, it's the transition from doing to being. And that brings us to a very important point about boundaries. Many of us are exhausted not because of our own work, but because we are carrying the invisible load of everyone around us. We are the emotional project managers of our families. Lightness is impossible if you are carrying everyone else's backpack.
That is so true. I see so many women whose thyroid issues or adrenal fatigue are exacerbated by the simple inability to say no. They feel guilty saying no to a PTA meeting or a social commitment, but every no to something that drains you is a yes to your own health and your own new rhythm. It's about reclaiming your agency. We spent decades proving we could do it all. Now, we have the luxury and the necessity of choosing what is actually worth our precious energy. As we head toward the end of our conversation today, I want to leave our listeners with a thought. This new phase, this new rhythm, it's not a step down. It's a step up into a more conscious way of living. Producing without burning out isn't just a dream, it's a biological requirement for our longevity.
It really is. And it starts with that first moment of the day when you check in with yourself. Instead of grabbing your phone and looking at the world's demands, ask your body, how are we feeling today? What do we actually have the capacity for? That tiny shift changes everything. It moves you from being a victim of your schedule to being the architect of your life. I love that, the architect of your life. It's such an empowering way to view this evolution. We aren't fading away, we are refining. We are becoming more potent because we are becoming more focused.
And remember, if you're listening to this and feeling like you're currently in the middle of the burnout phase, don't be hard on yourself. You can't find lightness by beating yourself up. Start small. One boundary, one afternoon of rest, one task removed from the list. This journey of She's Evolving is all about that. It's about walking this path together, sharing the struggles, and celebrating the small wins. Your body is changing, your life is changing, and that is a beautiful thing if we allow ourselves to flow with it. It really is. I feel like we could talk about this for hours, Elena, but I think the most important thing for our listeners to take away is that they are not alone. That feeling of I can't keep up is a signal, not a failure. It's your soul and your body asking for a new pace. A pace that honors who you are now, not who you were 20 years ago.
Thank you for this honest conversation, Julia. It's always so grounding to talk through these things with you.
Thank you, Elena. And to everyone listening, thank you for letting us into your day. We hope this episode helps you breathe a little easier and walk a little lighter.
If this conversation resonated with you, please consider sharing it with a friend who might need to hear that it's okay to slow down. Let's spread this message of lightness.
Follow us on our social platforms and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss our next episodes. We have so much more to explore together in this incredible journey of evolution.
You are evolving, you are growing, and you are exactly where you need to be. Until next time, take care of yourself and your rhythm. See you in the next episode of She's Evolving. Stay well, stay light. Soft, uplifting acoustic music fades in slowly, creating a sense of peace and closure. Bye-bye, everyone. Take care.